Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today we're continuing What If Shane Killed Rick? This is part 4, so if you haven't already seen the prior series parts, make sure you check them out using the link in the description or comments section. But with that covered, let's go ahead and get into the video now. So the original groups from canon were Tara, Rosita, and Eugene in the garage, Morgan, Denise, and Carol with Owen, who's one of the wolves, and then Rick, Michonne, Gabriel, Carl, Judith, Deanna, and the Andersons in a house. But this time, Morgan is just now joining the group. Morgan and Abraham's group gets split up due to walkers, with Eugene and Morgan going into the house Denise was in. Owen goes inside and steals Denise, but Morgan can't really do anything about it due to the walkers. Meanwhile, Abraham and Rosita go into the Andersons' home. Deanna had still been bitten here, so she's gonna be fading as she inspires Michonne. Abraham suggests that they escape as soon as possible due to the walkers trying to get in, but that's easier said than done. Carl brings up the walker guts idea, as Glenn would have probably mentioned doing it at some point. So they reluctantly do this idea, which works in getting them out. The difference here is that Ron and Carl don't really have a rivalry since Carol was the one who killed his father. Before it was Rick, Carl's father, so it made sense why Ron would dislike him. But here, not so much. Sadly, I would still see Sam having the panic attack that he did in canon due to Carol's influence on him. So Sam would be eaten by walkers, and Jesse wouldn't let go of him, so I think we'd have the scene of Carl cutting her arm to free himself. Ron would obviously be broken at seeing his mother and brother die, and would try to shoot Carol for killing his father, but luckily Michonne is able to stab him, but this sends the bullet toward Carl. So Carl is still shot in the eye, and Carol picks him up as the rest of them fight their way to safety. They get him into the infirmary, and Owen takes Denise there so she can save Carl. But since Carol is in Rick's place, she can't snipe Owen, so this means that he actually survives and they both get into the infirmary. The gang is furious upon seeing one of the wolves, but Denise says not to kill him and that he's been bitten. They need to cut his arm off and they don't have time to debate it. So Michonne cuts off his arm and the others try to get him patched up while Denise works on Carl. Once they've got Owen in a stable enough position, they get tired of not doing anything against the walkers, and so some of them, like Michonne and Carol, go out and just kill a ton of them. And this results in everyone joining in, and they eventually finish all of them off. Elsewhere, Daryl and Beth get found by the motorcycle saviors and take their weapons. When they mention Negan, Beth asks who that is, and the leader threatens to kill her, but as he's about to, Daryl blows them all up with a rocket launcher. The two then return to Alexandria and save everyone, which is a good moment for Beth. Also, I do still think that Nicholas would have died by this point in a similar fashion to his original death, so we still get the Glenn fake death here. Aiden will still be alive and would be a changed man now, so this also means that Spencer doesn't go crazy and start plotting against everyone since his brother is still alive. Once it's all over, Morgan, Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita introduce themselves, and Morgan asks any of them if they ever met a man named Rick Grimes. Of course, to the original group, this name is very familiar, but it's deep in their mind. They tell Morgan that he was killed by his best friend about a year ago. This breaks Morgan's heart, as he quickly begins to regret not leaving when he had the chance. Maybe if he had, Dwayne and Rick would still be alive. But he decides to stick around and help the group Rick was part of in order to honor him. Luckily for him, Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene also decide to stay. Following Owen's arm removal, he is put into a cell to protect everyone, since he was just trying to kill all of them a day prior. Denise and Morgan both vouch for him, but most people want him dead, especially Aiden, whose mother is now dead due to the wolves' attack on Alexandria. But I think that with enough good people around, they'd prevent anyone from killing Owen, and he'd instead be locked up for a while. Anyway, now that the canon events are starting to line up, I'm sure you guys are wondering how Shane and Woodbury are doing. If I'm being honest, we'd probably see a war break out between Woodbury and the militia. It might be started by Shane, or it might not be. I'll leave that part up to your guys' own interpretation, as I could totally see it going either way. But the bottom line is that there would be a war, which would be very big. Woodbury is a huge town, but doesn't have as much artillery compared to the militia, which literally has a tank. So I think there would be a ton of losses on both sides, which is perfect for me. I'd see Pete and Mitch Dolgan both dying, as well as their militia. The only people who survive on that side are Tara and Megan, who weren't involved in the battle. As for the state of Woodbury, the buildings would be mostly destroyed with the walkers overrunning the area. So I think the survivors would be Shane, Milton, Lizzie, and Mika. Her father, Martinez, Dr. S, and everyone else would be killed in the attack or by walkers. And so the remaining four escape the ruins, with Shane dragging the crying Lizzie and Mika, and Milton following. They later run into Tara and Megan, who they are unaware were part of the militia as they weren't involved in the fight. So Shane allows them to join their little group. The 6 people would split into pairs when going out. We'd see Lizzie stay with Milton, while Tara and Megan stick together, and Shane takes Mika in order to train her to make her stronger. But one day, Lizzie stabs Milton in his sleep and ties him up so that when he turns, he won't get free. Shane and Mika return and see Lizzie with a zombified Milton, and she's going on about how she could let Mika turn next. Shane is immediately furious by this and just blown away at the fact that this could happen.
What is that? What is that?
He knew this girl was weird, but this is a new level. But even so, Shane speaks calmly and convinces Lizzie to come with him to the fields. After leading her away, he shoots and kills her, knowing that it's what had to be done. Mika cries when she sees him return without Lizzie, but Shane assures her that she was a danger to everyone, and he couldn't let her kill anyone else because of her ideas. He wasn't going to let her hold Mika back. Mika cries and nods her head, and Shane hugs her to comfort her. He wonders why Megan and Tara aren't back yet, and so he keeps watch throughout the night while Mika sleeps. Now I'm sure you're also wondering why those two haven't returned, so I'll answer that now. You see, Tara and Megan stumbled upon a house that was stocked up with lots of food. As Tara went outside to deal with some walkers later that night, she came back in, unable to find Megan. Tara yelled out her name as she frantically looked in every room before running outside and seeing a car with a cross. That's right, Megan has been taken by the people of Grady Memorial Hospital. This actually works with the timeline, as currently with Shane, we're only about a month or 2 off from season 4, so it makes sense that the hospital group would still be baiting people. Tara tries chasing after the car, but is quickly outpaced and left panting. With no other option, she heads back to the house Shane and the others are at. Next day, when she finds them, she quickly tells them that Megan has been kidnapped. Shane replies with his own story. Lizzie killed Milton, and he killed Lizzie to prevent her from killing again. He asks if she saw where the car was headed, and she says yes. The 3 then go back to the house Tara was at and stocking up on supplies. After that, they head the way the car was going, but that short path can only lead them so far, as they've got no idea where the people who took Megan could have went. But as the trail runs dry, Shane hears a few nearby walkers. As he approaches them, he sees a man hiding from them. Shane decides to go take the walkers down with Tara aiding him. They do so, and they save the guy who had been hiding. Shane asks his name, and he says that he's Bob Stookie. Tara asks if he's seen a car go by at any point recently, and he replies with a yes. He saw the direction it was going in. So they ask if he can take them to it, as they're looking for Tara's niece. Bob agrees, and so they follow him until his knowledge of their path runs out. But by that point, they've got a decent idea of where they went. Shane realizes that they're going to be heading back to Atlanta in order to find the location of the people who took Megan. In the time where Megan is at the hospital, the people there would take a decent care of her since she is a little girl. After a few days or maybe even weeks of looking, Shane's group finds the hospital and decides that he wants to take it over. Shane knows it could end up being the perfect place for them to live, so if they can get Megan back and take the hospital, it would be great. So Shane, Bob, and Tara all form a similar plan to that of Rick's. They enact it quite similarly as well, with Shane killing everyone that stands in his way. As for Tara and Bob, they're just with Shane to make sure he doesn't die, but they're not trying to hurt anybody. However, it is kind of drummed up by Shane, the fact that they would kidnap a little girl, so if they have to hurt someone, they will. But they're gonna mostly avoid it. Eventually, Shane makes it up to where Dawn is. There, they have an argument, and this leads to Shane gunning Dawn down in front of all the residents before starting a speech. From what he heard, she was corrupt. Taking little girls and refusing to give them back is not what a leader does. He used to be an officer just like her, and he knows how to handle these things. The group at the hospital was extremely reluctant at first, but I think his argument would be good enough to convince them, especially when they bring up stories like Noah's, where his father was left behind, or the officers having to kidnap others under the rule of Dawn. So having another officer come in and steer them in the right direction would be really good. Now that we've caught up with Shane's group, we must return to our main squad at Alexandria. Daryl and Aaron would likely meet Jesus while going on a run to find people, since they're still doing that. This would happen in a similar fashion to how it does in the show, only here, Aaron is replacing Rick. They learn about Hilltop from Jesus and decide to make a trade with them. But first, they must take out the Savior's base, so they're gonna do that now. I don't see a lot really changing here other than a few people being swapped around. Heath goes off on his own this time since Tara isn't part of the group. Because of this, he'd probably be the one to find Oceanside and have that little subplot. Denise would still be killed by Dwight, with Rosita having to break the news to Owen. He's furious that the one person who made him really feel wanted is now gone. Past that, the squad still ends up being found by the Saviors while trying to take Maggie to the hilltop. And I know that we kind of just rushed through the second half of season 6, but I really don't want to get bogged down by the unimportant stuff. So I only pointed out the main changes in order to keep our plot moving forward. So, once they get caught by Negan, they are all forced to their knees and surrounded by the saviors. But this time, they're missing Rick. Carol and Morgan are still off together and get found by the Kingdom. I don't see the people Negan kills changing too much, so the deaths of both Abraham and Glenn remain the same. I'm not gonna leave you guys on a cliffhanger like the actual show does. Negan then takes Daryl to the sanctuary and leaves everyone else to go back to Alexandria and work for him. Without Rick to ground everyone into the reality that they stand no chance, I would see Michonne fighting back a lot sooner. This also prompts Rosita to fire at Negan with the bullet Eugene made. This would lead to the deaths of both Spencer and Olivia as it did in canon, and Eugene is taken to the sanctuary. Now that we're halfway through season 7, I think we can go ahead and leave this part right here. We've got some interesting dynamics going on with Shane's group now consisting of him, Tara, Bob, Megan, and Mika, which is just such a strange lineup, but honestly fits kinda well. And then of course back with our main group there have been some interesting changes, but not too much to where it's unsurvivable for the group. Season 7 has a lot more in store for us for the next part, so I hope to see you all there when you guys check it out. But as always, tell me if you like this part, tell me what you think will happen next, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, have a great day.